Throughout my studies, I have identified 4 superordinate modes of communication. What do I mean by this? These are modes of communication that communicate transcendental ideas beyond the superficiality of your episodic memory. These modes of communication are mathematics, literature, art, and speech. And today I would like to talk about them. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jack Garraway Fyson, otherwise known as Science Gecko. And when you study as much as I do, you begin to notice patterns. You notice that things can be broken down into very discrete and almost universally applicable ideas. And the concepts I just explained to you, or even topics, are what I have identified. See, when I said that they speak about transcendental ideas beyond just your superficial episodic memory, this encompasses things like logic, human psychology, be it your unconscious or your emotion. And each of those things are able to do though. Each of those things are able to articulate them better than the others. Take maths, for example. You don't write a mathematical equation to calculate a person, because quite frankly, you can't. There are too many variables. They're too confounding. You cannot formulate a calculation to quantify the human experience. That's what phenomenology ultimately is. It's why science has to reject human phenomenology, because science is so entrenched in mathematics. And that is why mathematics is ultimately the domain of logic. What its transcendental meanings are what mathematics conveys is the superordinate logic beyond people, beyond the world. This is what the universe runs on. You can see this in forms of analytical geometry, geometry itself, not even multivariable calculus, just standard calculus. We are able to calculate instantaneous rates. We're able to formulate graphical demonstrations of things across time. We're able to extrapolate, which is inherently logical. And that's far beyond the episodic superficiality of your memory, or even your autobiography. You can't comprehend the time factor. In phenomenology, there's a concept called the life world, and temporality is essentially the human time, how we perceive time. Yet in mathematical logic, we can extrapolate graphically the time that appears to be constant across all material phenomena. And so that in of itself transcends the person. And that's not even getting into the quantification of numbers and how they can better describe the financial world or model different factors and components of the human experience, objects, so on. And that's just mathematics. See, you may be thinking, well, if mathematics can do all of this material nonsense, how do you measure people? How do you calculate these things? Or even explain them? Well, that's where the others come in. Now, the next step you might be thinking is, well, you had maths describe all of materialism. Couldn't there be one unifying thing that describes people? Honestly, you probably could concatenate these three into some into some set. Ultimately, they would be a class, and you could probably put them into a set. But I decided that in order for this video, I wanted to describe each one of them in their uniqueness. So, people. People have multiple levels. When you study psychology, you learn about the unconscious, you learn about the conscious, and then you learn about the biology. And so you need modes of communicating these things. Now, biology is a science, so maths has that covered. But what about the others? Well, literature is one of the best. See, this is a Jordan Peterson-based idea. The idea that literature has an underlying through thread in the human phenomenology is something that, by citing Jordan Peterson, I believe is in multiple different subjects. Society needs an underlying narrative in order to maintain its congruence with itself. And if you lose that, then ultimately you lose the ultimate ethos that makes up your country. And that works the same for people. If you are adopting a and inefficient narrative where you are living a life that's not particularly adventurous, not particularly beneficial, you are not going to be able to experience the human phenomenology accurately because you're going to be incongruent with your potential and then yourself. And that ultimately makes literature the transcendental explanation and communication for human phenomenological ideals. And that's why we can listen to stories, that's why we go to movies, because we need those narratives. That's the world of archetypes. We're going to be talking about Carl Jung. Speaking of Carl Jung, this can lead us into the next interesting discussion: art. In my studies of Carl Jung, in his psychological practice, he performed artistic therapy. Now, perhaps I got that wrong. Essentially, he requested and encouraged clients to perform art, draw things about their unconscious, pursue things artistically in the therapy. Why did he do this? Well, Jung believed that if you were able to present your artistic imagination, that would lead you directly to individuation. What is individuation? Well, individuation by definition translates to becoming whole. And this goes back to the literature idea I just spoke to you about. Congruence. Being one with not just your conscious, but your unconscious, your emotions, and your life. See, art is the medium through which individuation can be achieved. Now, you may ask why? How is that the case? Art is just pretty pictures or a performance. Well, what happens when you are drawing? Do you have an idea of what you're drawing? Well, certainly you do, but does it ever turn out exactly how you're planning? Sometimes, but I'm willing to bet that typically, I've had this experience myself as somebody who's drawn, you'll have an idea, and then you're trying to get it on a piece of paper, but you just keep making those little mistakes. It never manifests correctly. It's almost as if you can't grasp the idea that you had. And there's a reason for that. See, there's a line of thought, and I'm trying to recall who exactly thought it. I'm pretty sure I cited it from Jordan Peterson, but I'm pretty sure Jung also had something to do with it. And that is that ideas are not your own. You will have ideas, but how do ideas exactly manifest? How do you attain these ideas? Do you just have them? Are they floating around space? Are we going to go platonic? Are they in the heavens? Well, in a manner of speaking. Because why can't you conjure up a perfect idea at will? It has to possess you. And that's why art is so important. Because an artistic piece that is successful and deep, that's not an easy thing to do. That requires immense amount of concentration. And that's what the transcendental language of art communicates. It is the unconscious. It is the transcendentalism that is behind the human consciousness. It's what makes your ideas form, and they manifest in an imagistic format. And throughout all of society, we have adopted this. See, back in caveman times, the first mode of communicating things was a narrative through art. Now that's interesting to think about, because that then demonstrates that the literature, so a narrative, and then the artistic, ultimately can be conjoined to make up something phenomenologically rich and something meaningful. And now we get to the last one, which is speech. Everyone speaks, so it's a little bit hard to think about, well, speech is the mode we communicate the simple, superficial, episodic memories that we have. We communicate everything through speech, our needs, our desires, our lives, but also our emotions. See, have you ever thought about just how complicated speech actually is? The tongue is an immensely powerful organ, but it goes beyond that. I've had to transcribe when doing my psychology degree, and it really demonstrates to you just how much in the human speech there is going on. You have intonations, you have inflections. Some people shout, some people then whisper. Your tone is endlessly changing. Why is that? You're not conscious of it. Half the time, people will say your tone has changed when you don't feel like it has. So why is that? Well, I'm a psychoanalytically inclined psychological student. I'm interested in why these things are happening. Beyond just, oh, well, you know, they just misunderstood me. I didn't actually have any problems. Well, maybe you did. And maybe you should be a bit more self-reflective of that. Because what's actually going on? Why did your tones change? See, speech has a lot of connection with your emotion. And so your emotional states are telltale signs of something going on, and you might not even be aware of it. You can be stressed without feeling stressed. You can be upset without having been beset by the depression yet. And your speech will indicate it. See, Freud's defense mechanisms that he developed when dealing with psychotherapy are majority to do with speech, because Jung did art. Freud did speech. See, denial, overcompensation, action-reaction, these are all forms of speech. These all are conveyed via speech. They can be conveyed via your movements and your gestures. And so there could be another factor to it. I personally include those in the artistic and the speech, because there are middle grounds to all of these, as you probably caught on by the literature and art demonstration. And so the transcendental elements of speech are the emotion that's behind them. These Freudian defense mechanisms of denial, you don't know you're doing it. They are manifesting because of a drive impulse that you have failed to fulfill. Why? Well, congruence. See, maybe I should explain a little bit more about what congruence actually is. Congruence was an idea proposed in the humanist literature by Carl Rogers, a humanist psychologist in about the 1950s, sorry. And he formulated the ideas of affirmation and being congruent with oneself and one's identity in order to solve neuroses in psychology. And I like that literature. In fact, I think it has relevancy today. If you look at the society we live in now, we're very incongruent with a lot of different things. You've got political divisions, you've got mental health crises, you have divisions between your online persona and your life persona, and then that's all incongruent with yourself. So in all of that, incongruence appears to be above it all. And that's why therapy is such a modern thing. Now, this therapeutic idea is typically not enjoyed. In psychotherapy, CBT is the thing that's preferred. But I have my problems with that. So I point out to you that congruence is something you should consider. And with these 4 domains, mathematics, literature, art, and speech, you can better articulate yourself if you understand them. See, the material world is mathematical, fundamentally. But when you start getting to the human, you need a mode to communicate that. You can't just communicate objectively, because it's fundamentally unproductive. You will miss out on your emotion, you'll miss out on what the actual meaning of your life is, and ultimately you'll not be able to convey your needs accurately to either the people you love or to yourself. And this is coming from a phenomenological perspective. See, I've dabbled in both areas. I study phenomenology in particular in my psychology degree, and I've studied mathematics and the material sciences as just a passion. And so I understand that both things are entirely relevant when it comes to understanding the world. But you need a language in order to speak them. And as far as I'm concerned, these 4 languages, these 4 transcendental communicative models, the logos, that's what you need. Right, well, I spend quite enough time talking about that. So, as always, do tell me your thoughts. What do you think? Have I missed one? Could there be another mode of communication that I have overseen and omitted from this dialogue? Could you have further insight, perhaps? Do speak to me about it, please, because I'm very interested. This is another line of thought that's quite interesting to me. It's why I'm talking about it. Right. I will bid you adieu.